Among the disturbing video and photos of the war in Ukraine, one picture has starkly illustrated the cost of the conflict. A warning, the image is disturbing. This is the family killed when a Russian mortar hit civilians fleeing Irpin. The photo was taken by Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist Lindsay Addario. She's in Kyiv. Hi there, it's so good to meet you. I really appreciate you making the time so late in the evening to join our program.
So nice to meet you, Vashi.
I wanted to just ask you, right now you're in Kyiv, is my understanding. How is it? How are you? What is it like being there?
So it's definitely gotten more intense the past 4 or 5 days. The fighting that was in the suburbs outside of Kyiv has kind of shifted really closer to the city. There are artillery strikes within the city on residential buildings. We're seeing more injured, more deaths of civilians happening inside of Kyiv. Of course, the cities of Mariupol, Kharkiv, those cities continue to be bombarded. So it's definitely gotten more intense.
I of course want to ask you about that now, I guess infamous, I don't know what the right word to use is, but that photo that was on the front page of the New York Times at the top of their webpage that really, I think, drove home for so many of us who are not in your shoes or in the shoes of Ukrainians, just how brutal the assault on civilians has been. And by that, I mean the photo of the family killed by mortar in Irpin. What was going through your head as you were able to take that picture?
I mean, first of all, I had just also narrowly escaped death. I mean, a round, either mortar or tank round, landed literally right between myself and Andre, who has been working with me, and the family. So it was about probably 20 to 30 feet from where we were standing. So there was the initial chaos, of course, just making sure we were physically okay, and then waiting for our security guard to give us the okay to run across the street. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't realize a woman and two children and a young man had also been killed there. It was very dusty. So when we got over there, it was shocking, really infuriating, because it was clear to me and to everyone else that that was a civilian evacuation route. And as the artillery strikes were coming closer and closer to the path of civilians, I was looking through my viewfinder and my camera thinking, it's not possible that they're actually going to target these civilians. And I was getting kind of angry as I was photographing, because I was watching these small children being dragged by their parents to run as fast as they could. Everyone was exhausted, and I remember thinking that. And then moments later, running upon the scene and seeing these four bodies looking so innocent with their luggage sort of strewn amongst them, and just sort of stopped in mid tracks.
Did it go quickly, or was it kind of playing out in slow motion for you?
No, it was all very frantic. I mean, we were still under attack. We were definitely not in the clear. There was a wounded soldier that was standing also quite close to us. Our security guard pulled him to safety behind a wall. Then he ran across the street, called for a medic. Then he asked us to run across the street. I took a few frames as I approached the scene, knowing sort of my role as a journalist. I've just watched a civilian route be targeted, and then kind of worked my way around the scene. I was thinking in my head, I have to be very careful about showing faces, but at the same time, I was thinking I have to shoot whatever I can, and I can figure all that out later, because these moments are really frantic and they're also incredibly emotional. And our adrenaline was really, sort of rushing through us, because we were still under fire.
I listened to another interview you gave in which you talked about later meeting the father and the husband of those individuals who were killed, and how he ultimately said to you that if he had had the opportunity to, or if the opportunity arose to give you permission to use that photo, he would have, because it constitutes a war crime. What was it like meeting him?
I mean, I was a basket case. I was very, very, very emotional. I mean, it took me a good kind of 2 days after that moment to stop sort of breaking down. And Andre as well. I mean, we were both very emotional, very sort of jarred. And so the day after that attack, we actually were able to get in touch with the godmother, Tatiana, the woman who died with her two children, her best friend, who was the godmother to those children. We were able to get in touch with her, and she gave us permission to come meet her. She was at the morgue. Sadly, we met her in the hospital and introduced ourselves as the journalist who covered that situation. And she knew very well the photo and the video, Andre's video, and it was very tearful. And I apologized to her for sort of documenting that moment. I apologize because, as a photographer, I sometimes feel responsible for the things I photograph. It's a ridiculous thing to feel when you sort of look at it rationally. But of course, you know, I'm there sort of documenting this moment that will last forever in the minds of that family. And so there is a fair amount of guilt that I end up feeling. And so she was amazing and also very emotional. And then 2 days later, we met the father, and it was very similar, that situation. You know, I extended my condolences. I said how sorry I was. I said how sorry I was for taking the photograph that would last forever in his mind, and sort of asked his forgiveness. But I mean, of course, he understood, and it's a rare occasion that someone can override their own emotions to understand the importance of a photograph like that.
As far as the importance of it goes, like what do you, I guess, what do you hope people realize from looking at that photo and the other ones you're taking, that they can't because they're not there?
Look, I mean, my job as a photojournalist is to document what's going on around me. My job is to dispel the propaganda. My job is to document reality, to document the emotions, to document the truth. And so, in this situation, it was a rare occasion where not only was I at the scene, but I watched sort of the run up to exactly what happened. So I had the context of how this family was killed. I didn't just arrive an hour later and see their bodies. It's very different because I was witness to the entire thing. And I think, often when we arrive after, we have to ask and do a lot of reporting about what happened. And I think in war, we as journalists have to really like make sure we ask the same questions of many different people so that we get the fair information, we get the correct information, because often people want to tell us what they want the world to hear. And so this was a situation where I wasn't relying on someone else's opinion. I witnessed the whole thing.
And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've been there since early February. And I'm just wondering
I've
what you have witnessed over that period of time must have changed so dramatically. What has that been like?
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. When I arrived here, I arrived on Valentine's Day. I arrived on the 14th of February. Kyiv was an incredibly bustling, vibrant city full of young people, old people out at cafes. The opera was going on. There was traffic everywhere, high fashion stores, people out and about. And I could not get my head around the fact that in 3 weeks it has become a military state. I mean, there are trenches dug around the city. There are sandbags everywhere. There are checkpoints every few hundred meters. I mean, it's really incredible how the city has been transformed by war.
Well, I'm sure, I express the sentiment of a lot of our viewers. We appreciate the work you're doing, and I really hope that you can stay safe. And the risk you're assuming, we appreciate that as well. Thanks a lot, Ms. Addario. Good to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.